Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cost Code Show presented by Notify. This is a podcast where we focus on helping trade contractors and financial professionals that work in construction run and grow their businesses. Today, I'm excited to welcome on Deb Defer. She's a construction accounting expert and currently the director of CAS Consulting at Woodard. Deb has a ton of experience on the ground doing accounting for construction companies. She's also an expert in helping accounting firms better serve construction clients through advisory services. She's going to walk us through the tricks of the trade that she's picked up along the way. So let's get started. How are we doing today, Deb?
Great. How are you today, Ryan?
Doing really, really well. I'm excited to have you on.
You.
Yeah, of course. So for those who aren't familiar with your work, maybe you could talk a little bit about your background and how you got here today.
Sure. I'd love to share. So I started in public accounting nearly 20 years ago. I was recruited because I was really good at QuickBooks. And I just saw tons of opportunity to really grow and scale a QuickBooks practice. So I had a great job. The firm I worked for was SS&G out of Cleveland, Ohio. And then in January of 2015, we were acquired by BDO. Boy, did my job go on steroids at that point. I was really fortunate, blessed to be asked to lead the technology team for that outsourcing practice. We grew the practice from 12 million to 70 million in less than 10 years. And we were on a magic carpet ride. We just had a great time. And as part of that, I really embraced Notify, and our construction clients could leverage the product. So it's been an incredible journey. I am now over at Woodard, and I get to help multiple firms build out their client advisory practices, CAS practices. And so that's what I do. I'm out there kicking CAS.
That's awesome. I love that. So yeah, that's a great transition. So there's a lot of definitions of CAS. So maybe you could talk about what it is, what it means, and how it's helping accountants kind of take on more of that advisory role for their clients.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, they first called it client accounting services, and we're wrapping the advisory in there. And then somebody got crazy and went to CAS, and they were calling it client accounting and advisory services. And now the AICPA has circled back and they have landed on CAS, client advisory services. And really what it is, we like to approach it here at Woodard from a 3-tier perspective. I don't like the word bookkeeping. It doesn't hold weight with me, especially if you're leveraging technology. I like to call that tier of it pre-accounting. And then we have the second tier, which is controllership. So we have daily transactions, we have monthly oversight, and then we take it up to the FP&A or financial planning and analysis. So that's the tier of what CAS really is. And if you can service clients in all 3 areas, you really can make a difference for their business, helping them generate wealth, right to the bottom line, helping them look at forecasting and budgeting and future of their business. So there's a lot involved in it, but you truly do become a part of their organization by being their trusted advisor.
That's awesome. And I think it kind of leads into the next kind of the big picture topic here, which is kind of this idea of advising through uncertainty. There's obviously like a lot of uncertainty going on in the world today that's affecting, the economy, and construction is one of those industries there's a lot of inputs into a construction project. They're complex to begin with, and then you have material prices and labor supply and all of those different things. So first of all, I wanted to get your kind of experience as far as like, what does uncertainty feel like from that kind of advisor seat when you're working with construction clients?
So when we talk about uncertainty in the construction profession, first of all, let me tell you, my husband was in heavy excavating construction for years, right? He retired after 35 years of being a laborer down in the ditches, laying water and sewer lines. So I heard a lot about it over the 35 years that he worked in the profession. And that when you talk about that uncertainty, it's, are they going to win the job? If they're out there bidding it, are they going to win the job? Understanding and getting those monthly newsletters to see which ones you lost and which jobs you won and what that looked like. Because my husband worked for an incredibly generous construction company because he was union, but they still paid bonuses, and that owner really took care of the guys. So the uncertainty of what's the bonus going to look like for your workers this year, or how do you plan when you don't know exactly which jobs you're going to win? How do you plan when you're going to buy the new equipment? And how do you plan What are you going to, when you're going to put folks maybe on unemployment for a short time frame? We're in Cleveland, Ohio. A lot of those folks get laid off in the wintertime, and the cash position changes dramatically during those winter months. So uncertainty is the unknown of when are you going to get these jobs? How often are they going to come in, and when are you going to have to hire? So from an advisory perspective, it's really managing cash flow. You really have to manage it from A to Z, start to finish, whatever you want to say, and you have to plan for a rainy day.
That's awesome. Cash flow is a super hot topic, super popular topic with our clients. And I think the whole kind of space in general for good reason. So maybe jumping up to that, you could talk about some of the red flags you look for in a construction business that's kind of starting to struggle, especially during these kind of like uncertain conditions that we're experiencing today.
So one big area that I look at is if my accounts payable gets higher than my accounts receivable, right? When you're looking at a balance sheet and you know that you're going to have more money going out than coming in. So we really, from an advisory perspective, really look to, have that egg nest or that plan for that rainy day where you are planning and you put aside money in a savings account, in a money market, understanding that things will go up and down with market prices changing. We've seen what the stock market's been doing. It's been going up, but whatever goes up comes back down. And so we just really have to manage those expenses. So one of my big red flags is if that receivable balance is lower than my accounts payable balance, we're upside down already. So we want to make sure we're managing to that, right? And paying things timely. Sometimes we can use our credit cards to extend those payables 30 days. A lot of the construction owners love to get the points on their credit card for, personal travel and stuff. But that's one big area that I really look at.
So that's great. That's a great tip for advisors they're kind of in this situation where they're working with a struggling is a harsh term, but a construction company that's experiencing some volatility or some challenges, let's say. What kind of mistakes do you see them make typically? Or like, where do they kind of go wrong when they're trying to help somebody kind of like right the ship or kind of navigate sort of like troubled waters, if you will?
Yeah, so it's really important for these business owners to not treat the business like a lifestyle business and not take the cash out that they need personally so they can plan for that rainy day. So that's important. It's also important to be able to plan ahead for equipment purchases, right? So that they can do jobs more efficiently rather than with older equipment that may break down, that they lose days on the job because of variations in weather, perhaps being able to get to a job site, whatever it is. When you talk about construction, I currently, not only am I a consultant for Woodard, but I also have Deb Defer Consulting on the side. And I have a big construction client that tears down those big windmills that are supposed to, make energy that I don't know if they really actually do. But just planning with them and understanding the fluctuation of the job and making sure that, because we're in Ohio, they're tearing these things down all over the United States, but wintertime gets slower. So, if you're working outside in construction, so you plan for it, right? And I just working alongside them, like I'm vested. I want to see them be successful. The more successful they are, I get paid timely, right? It's really a life cycle, and they feel comfortable to call me whenever they need to really, look at what needs to happen next and closing their books on a timely basis. I try to get those books closed no later than the 10th of the month. I prefer to get it closer to the 5th, but sometimes you don't get all the paperwork and things that you need to get in. So I think that's really important. You want to be proactive. You cannot be reactive in these situations. That's the blessing of all the cloud-based products that we have today. The SaaS-based products where, like Notify, we can get in real time and get the information that we need today, not waiting till the end of the month and being reactive.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of being proactive and kind of playing offense, if you will. So let's take we've been a little bit doom and gloom as far as the unpredictability and stuff like that. So maybe let's take it in a little more positive direction. So have you ever seen any kind of moments where uncertainty has actually created like an opportunity for a construction business owner, or, a business kind of gets stronger as a result of maybe a uncertainty or opportunities that they're seizing?
So, I mean, I look back at something like COVID, right? That was a real uncertainty and not good. My husband never missed a day of work. They never shut down because they were working outside, right? I mean, they did shut down for the first 2 weeks when the government told everybody they had to shut down. But, I look at a situation like that. They were working outside. They were, several feet apart from each other. And so taking something like that in uncertainty and making something positive where he didn't have to go on unemployment, he was able to still bring home a paycheck every week. I mean, that's a really great example for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to talk also just kind of about the idea, which I can kind of builds off of that, of kind of resilience in a construction business. So how would you kind of define resilience in a construction business? Is it, money in the bank, a certain mindset, systems, something else? Would love to get your perspective on that.
So one thing that comes top of mind when we talk about resilience with construction is their reputation and doing good quality work. I know that my construction client has built an incredible relationship with many of the customers that have these windmill farms all over the US and in Canada. And once you do a really good job for one area, they're going to refer you to like businesses and they're going to bring you back in to do work again. So I think a lot of the resilience comes from making sure you do good quality work. I also think that a lot of the resilience comes in when you have, it doesn't have to be brand new equipment, but when you have equipment that's operating effectively and efficiently and that you meet your deadlines, whatever they are within that construction business, I think that shows a great deal of resilience because they can move on to the next job and the next job. And they don't get stuff stuck in backlog. So I think those things are really important.
That's awesome. Now we're going to talk. So we've been talking, I think, kind of like about some big picture, kind of high level ideas. I want to get into like a little bit more of a tactics kind of conversation. So if you were advising a contractor today who's stressed about cash flow and unpredictability, what's kind of the first thing that you would do in that, initial advisory session?
I think I would be looking at forecasting. I would look at, historically what types of jobs, what the jobs look like. And then I would want to build out forecasting for them to look into the future. So they had things to look forward to. Like if they were uncertain about how many jobs would come in, I would want to give them a nice platform to go back and look and say, listen, if you get 5 new jobs in, you're going to have to hire X amount of people. This is what the jobs look like. This is the dollars that follow them. And here's the expenses so that they can plan and have a comfort rather than having that uneasy feeling. So then they know if they only get 2 jobs in, they're not going to have to do any hiring and that we're going to be able to manage the cash flow according to how we've built out that forecast. It also helps to predict when we need to buy new equipment as well. So that's, those are big areas because when you talk about construction, labor and equipment are going to be your 2 high areas that are going to drive how successful the business is.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's again, I think going to that kind of like proactive mindset and helping people plan, it kind of prevents anxiety, right? Because you're actually taking action on things and you have a plan in place for what might happen. Jumping off of that again, so in construction, we've kind of talked about how kind of complex these projects can be. So I think kind of trying to find some clarity amidst the noise is a really sort of helpful kind of thing to do. And there's obviously a lot of metrics you can track for a construction project or a construction business. Are there any numbers that contractors or accounting professionals think they should be focused on, but are actually more of a distraction from the big picture? And then maybe on the flip side, like what are the ones you recommend that they really kind of focus on as far as metrics and numbers are concerned?
So we talk about complexity, right? So many of these construction companies have to have WIP schedules. There's a lot of complexity and determining how you're going to track your WIP. Right? Is it percentage of completion? How are you doing it? And so as you determine that, you want to stick to the one methodology. You don't want to flip flop and reverse back and forth, right? You want to make sure that you're really following the same methodology. I like percentage of completion. I like to book it based on how much expenses have been spent per job and work it through on a percentage that way. I keep all the revenue on my balance sheet and then I move it over to my P&L with my month-end close processes based on that percentage of completion. the big thing that I like for my construction clients to look at is the gross profit margin on these jobs, because that gross profit margin is going to tell you if you will be profitable on a job or if you're going to find yourself underneath. I like to do overhead allocations with it so that we can make sure that we're allocating those general things across all jobs to get a true profitability. So I think that we can look at key performance indicators on even net promoter scores you can do to make sure customers are satisfied and things like that. But construction is volatile. And if you don't have a good percentage of gross margin on these jobs, you're not going to be you're not going to have a good bottom line. So, and I don't really like to take depreciation into consideration until below the expenses, because depreciation is just, it's a tax line item. It's not really cash outlay per se. So I kind of move that out of the equation when I'm looking at my gross profit margin.
Got it. One other thing I wanted to ask about is job costing, which is something that, it's just kind of a strength of Notify. A lot of folks come to us for our job costing, but it's not easy. It's kind of an overwhelming process. Do you have any tips on how you can kind of make it feel less overwhelming for teams? Because it does require a lot of like input from the field and things like that, and maybe make it feel like less of a financial exercise, and how they can kind of like see the tangible sort of output or outcomes of, job costing day in and day out.
Well, there's a couple things. You can leverage technology, right? If you're using a mobile app, you can capture receipts and code it directly to the jobs. That kind of takes that element away from a big pile of paper. Or I've seen some of these foremen on the job site with a box full of receipts in their truck, right? So it's having technology, maybe using things that have AI baked into them, where that artificial intelligence can read it and get the information over. So modern technology is going to be, cloud-based technology is going to be a resolution, in my opinion, hands down. But the other thing you want to keep in mind is when you win these jobs and you're doing the planning for them, that you have a good template that you're using to plan out exactly what it's going to take to get the job done, so that you can price it out accordingly, right? So you know what you're looking for your gross margin to be, and that you pay attention and make sure you do change orders when things come in outside the scope of what has been agreed upon. So I think those areas are going to be areas to look to products like Notify to really facilitate and make sure that you're capturing the information to the job appropriately.
Excellent. Yeah. And maybe I'll just jump off on that, because we've talked a little bit about different tools and technology and so things like that. And I know you're big on building out kind of a tech stack for your clients. Maybe you could talk a little bit about whether it's specific brands or types of tools that you look for, or sorry, that you recommend and kind of like use in your, in your practice to kind of help those cash professionals kind of figure out what they where they should start there. Cause I know it can be kind of confusing just for some folks.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm a big fan. Let's just start by saying there's a lot of technology out there. There's thousands of apps. But when we sit and we're talking about a construction company, we use typically QuickBooks Online as our core in the middle, and we bolt on Notify. So they're talking. Notify's got geofencing for time tracking. So what we want to do is we want to build a palace and not a Frankenstein. We don't want people to have to go into multiple places to do things. I want my construction guys to stay in Notify. I want them to do their time entry in Notify. I want them to really use the tool the way it was meant to, and then let me do the QuickBooks file because I'm the accountant. So I really like to segregate that, but then to complement it using things like Bill, formerly known as Bill.com. They have a bill spend with a credit card that you can actually use an app on your phone. Ramp does the same thing. They're great about capturing that information. They have accounts payable and the spend card as well. There's Row out there. I can name a lot of different apps, but currently what I use in my personal tech stack for my clients is QuickBooks Online. I like Advanced, and I like the new IES. I think that Intuit is spending a lot of money and a lot of time on the IES product for construction clients. And I'm very hopeful that they'll be able to build out the WIP schedules and things like that. But having, QBO here in the middle as my hubcap, having Notify to complement, doing the AIA reporting, all those things that we need to do with construction, and then having a bill and a bill spend, and then a payroll company, right? That you can combine all of them together in order to make sure that it's clipping along. I don't want my clients to have to log into 500 different places. I want them to be able to open up their mobile phone, snap a picture of a credit card receipt that they just spent money at the Lowe's on this particular job, be able to upload the invoices that we're getting from our vendors to pay for these materials, all in the same way as tracking those jobs, leveraging the job module so we can get true jobs profit and loss by job.
That's awesome. I think that's a really helpful kind of like picture that you kind of laid out there with all those different tools. Once someone has kind of their tech stack put together, they have their systems in place, the reporting is dialed in. Have you seen any kind of like aha moments when a client sort of gets all that stuff connected and like sort of like the fog of war, if you will, kind of like lifts away from their business?
Yeah, I can tell you a quick story.
Sure.
So, my construction client that I've been working with for 2 years now, going on 3, I was getting on an airplane and getting ready to sit down, and this gentleman at really high pitch in his voice, he was really upset. I know I paid that invoice through QuickBooks Online, and he was just going. And I finally leaned over to him and I said, "Sir, I'm sorry for eavesdropping, but you were a little loud. And why don't you order a drink, relax, and I'll see what I can do to help you when we get up in the air. I'm a QuickBooks expert." Right. And so we started our relationship there. And he called me that following Monday, and I've been working for him ever since. But turning on some of these tools to help him really takes it to a whole new level. When we turned on Bill Spend, at the time Bill had purchased Divvy, and they've now rebranded, but coding all those credit card expenses on 8 different job sites with 15 different users, it was coming back into a bookkeeper to enter them one by one by one. And when we streamlined the process and brought those transactions in through that credit card module, and this team was coding it themselves, you would have thought he was doing the happy pig dance. So, I mean, it makes a big difference leveraging tools the way they're meant to be leveraged.
That's awesome. It sounds like it really like kind of relieved a lot of stress that he maybe wasn't always aware that, that was the kind of the source of the stress. So I wanted to kind of maybe jump off of that topic and talk a little bit more about kind of the CAS side of things and move a little bit far away from the construction kind of company owner stuff. So one thing I want to talk about, I guess, is the sort of the human side of doing all this stuff, right? We know this is a stressful industry, and being an accountant and providing these advisory services is not an easy job to have. Wanted to talk about any kind of like tips you might have for helping folks that are doing this avoid like burning out and kind of trying to stay, mentally and physically healthy while they're trying to deliver like, great services to their clients.
Well, I think it's setting expectations, Ryan, that I want to have the books closed by the 10th of the month. Yes, I would love to have them closed by the 5th of the month, but I know that there's going to be some complexities. And I know my client well enough to know that there's always trailing paperwork. Communicating and setting those expectations as their trusted advisor is really important, and being honest with them when they're not getting things to you timely, not in a mean way or anything like that, but to take the stress off the business owner trying to pick up things. Like I can say, to my client, would you like me to finish the WIP schedule this month for you? I know you're traveling to go bid 3 more jobs. So again, it's the communication, keeping open lines of communication. I use my cell phone a lot. I text with my clients. It's not just an email. I don't want to hide behind that email. I want to have open conversations. Jumping on Zoom meetings or Google Meets where we can have this conversation. I go out there at least once a month so that I can have face-to-face time with him. My husband and I will do dinner with he and his wife and the partner and his wife. So I think that, you build that trusting relationship, you become part of the business. But if you don't have clear expectations and you are not honest and you don't try to pick up areas that they're faltering in just to help them through, that takes off a lot of stress on both sides of the fence. Because then I know I can get the month closed sooner. If he needed help with that WIP, I can knock it out faster.
That's awesome. I think that's really, really, really helpful. we are getting towards the end of the interview. So I wanted to move into our kind of concrete takeaway in the spirit of the show, giving someone one thing they could do this week if they wanted to improve their business. So like, what's one thing a contractor or someone who's advising a contractor can do this week to feel more confident despite whatever chaos may be going on around them?
Well, let's start with from a contractor perspective. If they're not working with an accounting professional that is proactive and is their trusted advisor, they might not have the right accounting professional. So maybe it's time to look. So I would tell them that. And not that I want somebody to lose a job or lose business, but in today's day and age, in the 21st century, we have got to use cloud-based technology. We have got to get away from on-premise installation products because they're going away. QuickBooks Desktop is going away, and folks need to be proactive and move to cloud-based solutions. That's number one. Find that trusted advisor. Know what technology you can leverage. And then for those that are the practicing accountants, you also should be looking at your technology stack, what you're leveraging to advise your clients. What tool from a reporting standpoint are they using? Are they looking at Reach reporting where they can build some custom reports? Are they looking at for impact data? Are they looking at SIFT analytics? What products are they leveraging that have built-in generative AI to be able to help these clients really grow and succeed in their construction business?
That's awesome. Those are some great, I think, like immediately applicable tips. Deb, is there anything, maybe you could talk a little bit before we completely close out about Woodard and what you guys do for folks who may not be aware?
Sure, absolutely. So Joe Woodard, the CEO of Woodard, has multiple business lines. Number one, we produce the U.S. largest accounting show, Scaling New Heights, in June every year. It's fantastic for the accounting profession. Over 150 vendors on the vendor floor, 100 different CPE credits for accountants to earn. So if you haven't or don't know about, go out and look at Scaling New Heights 2026. And then the other thing we do, I'm running the CAS division for CAS Consulting. We go into CPA and BPO firms and help them build out their CAS practice. We also have a membership for folks if they'd like to join Woodard as a member, those singlepreneurs or smaller CPA firms. It's really great to be involved with the community. And we also help with an M&A arm to help marry people, like not really marry, but, get folks together. Dot connector. We're not brokers, but we have lots of folks in our Rolodex that are getting ready to retire and looking to sell. And then we have others that are looking to buy. So we dot connect and pull them together. So it's a great organization, and we're here to help build business advisors across the U.S.
That's awesome, Deb. I think that's a great note to end on. So Deb, thank you so much for joining us. To everyone who's watching or listening, thank you for tuning in. And if you're looking for help managing your projects and finances for your construction business, check out Knowify at knowify.com. We'll be back with another episode soon. Thanks.